We hope you've all been enjoying the fact that you were announced as a finalist and taking the glory that comes with it. And I have my two colleagues with me today, Lindy Mooney and Meg Dunphy, who are going to talk you through some of the details of how we manage our judging process. And I'm sure on the line we'll some people who have been there and done it before, and there'll be some people for whom it's totally new. Okay, so let's officially get going. Good morning, and delighted to have you all join us here this morning. Hope you're thrilled that you became finalists a week or so ago for the CIPD Ireland Awards 2025. It's great to have you as part of this community today. And we know the standard was really high, so well done to all of you. And we know that there's going to be some interesting preparation and discussions going on our judging days. So this morning is really just to give all you a chance to ask us some questions, to talk a little bit about the process, and really to encourage you to get organised early and get planning early, rather than think you can leave it till the new year. I have my colleagues with me, and I'll introduce you to them in a while. So I'm Mary Connaughton, Director of CIPD in Ireland, and just going to walk through this. We're going to do this quite informally, but I think it might be worth letting us go through the slides before we take questions, because I think your questions could relate to what's coming next. But do put them in the chat, and then we'll go through the chat and make sure we cover them all off. But in many ways, it's your session. So how long we take here depends on the number of questions and issues that you want to ask us about. But we've put some structure on it to help you actually know what's coming. So it's great to have you all here. Lindy, the next slide, please, if you don't mind. Our sponsors. Yes, and want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Our main sponsor is Sanderson, the recruitment agency, and they're very good supporters of us. And then the other sponsors will all sponsor different categories. So depending on which category you're in, you'll have the presentation of your award made by somebody from that particular category. So it's great to be able to showcase them and showcase you on stage. And okay, so let me just go over the categories. So we went through the categories last week and talked a bit about the actual categories. Just to say that we have two different types of categories. Most of them are organisations, and you've put in a project or a piece of work that's been done by the organisation or a team in the organisation. We have two categories that are for individuals. And the first one there, our diversity champion, is the first of those categories. And that and our rising star of the people profession are ones that we give individuals to. So for those categories, they're actually nominated by their organisation or by a colleague or a manager. So what we expect on the day is for that person who nominated the individual to come along, but also for the actual person who's been nominated. And there's a slightly different entry form for that. So for those two categories, you've been asked different questions. So if we make some general comments today that sound like they're a bit organisation focused, apologies, but we recognise that those two categories are all about the individuals, and that's the briefing that our judges will have. And really the guidance is in the definition of those two categories and in the questions that you were asked when you actually put in your application form. Excuse me. So, as I say, we have had high standard, and we are really looking forward to meeting people in all these categories. We have up to 7 in some categories, because the standard was so high, or we were having 2 or 3 finalists coming in on the same scoring from our judges, and we let them all go through. So for some we have 7, but for most of them there's less than that. But it shows the high standard when we end up with categories that are 7. And again, all those 7 people will be met on the same day by the same panel of judges. And we're delighted to have HR Success and SMEs, because we struggled a little bit with that last year. So it's great to see that one come through. As I talked about on the finalist announcement, we have split learning and development into two categories, large and small, large and medium, because we actually had relatively good-sized organisations involved. And they will be handled totally separate as two separate panels, as if they were two different categories. And one panel will judge the large and one panel will judge the medium, and we will have an award for the large and we have an award for the medium. So the fact that there are two, you don't lose out. The full process applies to each of those categories. Overall, around the categories, I would say, go back and look at the category definition that we have given you, because that's what we give to the judges. The judges will be looking for you to show how you meet the definition and the description that's there. So where it says in the category definition, we will be looking for evidence of impact, our evaluation, our business metrics. That's really what the judges will want to see. So your starting points around your category is, what does the definition say in the category descriptions? So when you're preparing your presentation, make sure you have an eye on that. The other source of information that the judges will be working to is your application. So you've already done a lot of thinking about this in putting your application together. And the judges will all be given a copy of your application in advance. So it's not something you have to go through the details of when it comes to the actual explaining some of the details. So you can take it that your application has been read. So when you're preparing your presentation for the judging panel, remember those two, and look back to check that you're sticking to the brief of the category description, and look back at the questions you were asked. In essence, we've had the judges do this now for a while, and the key feedback we keep getting is what they want to hear from finalists is a story. So what's your story? And you have about 15 minutes to tell that story. And what that means is they want to see a beginning. Okay, so why are you doing this? What's the value of doing this piece of work? What's the rationale behind it? And the business rationale behind it. Where's the added value to the business of doing this? Then they want the middle of the story. And the middle of the story is, this is what we did. So we consulted, we delivered a training program, and we engaged with employees, we rolled out a new piece of software. So the actual activity that you did, you revamped your reward system, and you tackled a different approach to recruitment to make it more inclusive. Whatever that was, that's the kind of the middle of your story. And then the end of your story is the impact. What was the impact on the organization, on the individuals, on the business, on HR as a result of doing this? The more you can link to organization metrics, the better. We encourage people to do it. We know in HR, it's not always easy. It's not necessarily been our legacy. But whatever metrics, whether they be employee engagement metrics, whether they be absenteeism metrics, whether they be an evaluation of a learning intervention and the application of those skills, whether it was a major efficiency that saved 20% of time, because any time saving has a cost saving associated with it because you've freed up resources to do other work. So it is important that when you think of your application, that you look at metrics, and that's the end of your story. So in putting together your presentation, we would say, think of it as a story. And we might use the word presentation today, but actually it's not, it doesn't have to be a PowerPoint presentation. That's not what we say is required. Where it's the right thing to do, it's fine to come in without a PowerPoint presentation. What we find is it sometimes helps the delegates, it helps the finalists to put structure on what you're doing. So it may be for that. But I know Meg and Lindy will touch a bit more on that in a little bit more detail. Okay. So I think we have everyone now, and I think we'll move in and let me introduce Meg Dunphy, and you've probably seen Meg before. Meg is our HR engagement and policy lead, and Meg is going to talk to you a bit more about the details of the judging process. And then I know all of you have been engaging with our star, Lindy Mooney, who has been looking after the awards for us. And then Lindy will walk through the steps that around the logistics, around making it all work for you. So Meg, your
Yep.
screen isn't, your camera isn't on. You're there, are you? Your camera isn't on.
Yeah, and my camera, I can see myself. I've
All right.
spotlighted myself. Am I here? I can see you.
You can see
Okay,
me. Okay,
sorry, it must be my side. It must be my side. No problem at all.
That's good.
As I say, you can put some questions in the chat, but let's hear from Meg first, and then let's hear from Lindy, and then we can go back over it. Great. So Meg, over to you.
Thanks, Mary. Between the three of us, I think we'll cover a multitude, but if there's any gaps, yeah, feel free. So just preparing for January, the first thing is to know your category and criteria. And as Mary said, you go back to that descriptor in the application form of your category and make sure that you're covering everything that you've asked in there. So in your second round judging and preparing for that, you're building on the written entry. So it's not a replication of what you've put in your application. It's actually building on that. So sorry, we might go back there, Lindy. But just to say, it's useful for the judges that you maybe do a little bit of framing. So you just give an overview of what was in your application and then you build on that. So just remember, they're seeing a lot of people during the day. So it's good just to set the scene, as Mary said, tell the story. They will have read your application, but I suppose they are inundated with a lot of information in that day. So make sure that you're making it very clear what your entry is about, and just a refresher, frame what you've put in your written application and then build on that. So it's just to make it very, very clear for the judges what you set out to do. Keep it straightforward, and where it allows visual. So as we know, people a picture tells 1,000 stories, and I know Mary did say PowerPoint is not necessarily compulsory if you don't need it and you rather have a very free-flowing conversation between three of your colleagues, and that's fine. But if you do have pictures or things that went well and you can visually show that is always nice to bring it to life. Be your own devil's advocate. So what we mean here is what we've heard from other applicants going through the process, finalists, should I say, going through the process, is they either presented for some other colleagues or they just sat back and did it for themselves. So just to say, maybe get one of your colleagues to be the judge, and then you're presenting what would you want to hear about. And you could actually kind of test it that way yourselves between colleagues or whoever's going to be a good advisor for you. So just take a step back and say, okay, let's run this as if it's the real thing. What are we missing? If you presented to a colleague, would they identify any gaps in the story, or would they give you a little bit of guidance on, oh, you could add this or that, or do you remember we did that, or we had a day out here, or we had a town hall and it was received really well, or whatever it is. So combine employee experience outcomes with metrics linked to the business outcomes. So it's always good to hear the impact that it's had on employees at the end of the day. That's what we're here for. Yes, we're here for the business success, but ultimately, it's the employee experience. It's making sure that we are delivering, a better workplace for people. And, ultimately that's the goal. So where you can combine obviously business outcomes and the kind of, the strong metrics like, improvement in productivity or whatever else it is, maybe some employee stories can also bring that to life for you. So maybe it's a short testimonial from somebody, maybe they're there on the day. So I'll come to it in another slide, but we do advise only 3 can come to that presentation, that virtual presentation. Now, at times people can bring, very senior people to that. So you could bring, your CEO, your director, whatever the case may be. You may want to bring an employee that had a major impact on their working life, and maybe that's something that brings it to life for you. So it's about you thinking about who would be the best people to represent the story. It doesn't have to be, a certain level. It can be a mix. It can be, just the HR team if they're the people that know the story best. But think about that and think about how you bring that to life. So start prepping now. Starting after the holidays is too late, and we do hear people that have done that and have been under a lot of pressure. And we do understand that this time of year is very, very busy for people. But if you can get ahead of yourself and get the bulk of that sorted for yourself before you break for Christmas, that's going to be a nice little buffer for you when you come back in, and then you're into just putting the fine tuning on it and getting it ready for yourself. So obviously, it's the CIPD HR Awards, and where you can map to our profession map and align with the relevant elements of that. That's also very strong for the judges to see and hear. So obviously go online. Now, just to say, all the links that are in this, we will send the presentation, so you'll have access to the links on this. But yeah, just go in and remind yourself around the profession map, the behaviours, the core knowledge, and where you can bring that to life or align that with your entry. That would be also really good. So future focus, show how the change or impact is sustainable and embedded. So I suppose what you don't want is where your project or initiative has come to an end and, you know, it looks very much like that's the end of the story, that it's not going to have much more longevity after that. So you need to show, okay, how is this going to continue on in the organization? Maybe you have plans on how you're going to embellish it. Maybe you're going to have more employee engagement and to find out what can we do better. And so it's about showing how that's really embedding itself in the organization, being lived through values or whatever the case may be. And what are your next steps to either keep it, sustain it, or to maybe embellish it. Explain the people aspects of the project or initiative. And that's like we said earlier. So just make sure that the human story, the employee story is coming out in your entry, and show the distinctiveness of your approach. So I mean, we say it a lot, and it's about reminding myself, have I said this yet or not? But it's very much bringing your personality to the presentation on the day. Like, I know that's kind of a hard thing to put into like a company personality or bring your culture to life, but it is very much, you know, what's good about your organization and what are you really proud of that you've done, and just like bring that to life in a human way, if that makes sense. Good entries often have interesting, innovative consultation and communication strategies that clearly get the message across to all stakeholders. So that's very important. Like, how did you bring everybody along the journey? How did you communicate out to employees at, you know, the right times? I know that can always be a tricky thing because you're trying to get something over the line or you're trying to get it to a good stage before you're communicating. But how did you make sure that there was strong communication throughout the process and that there was engagement and that you were open to hear employee voice at all stages as well? So that's also important. So like I said earlier, you have a max of 3 people that can come onto the online presentation. Who that is up to ye. You know, like I've said earlier, we have had, you know, senior people and CEOs come onto calls that may not understand the project very well, and that probably won't serve your story. But again, you may have a CEO that does understand the story, and bringing them in is really strong then because it shows that senior stakeholder involvement. So it's just a judgment call for yourselves. Who tells the story? Who supports us in telling this story? Is it an employee that was impacted? Is it a senior person in the organization? Is it a colleague in another department that you were cross-function and you know that's a strong element to the story? So decide who can bring it to life with you the best. So the overall time with your judges is 30 minutes. So that's 15 minutes presentation time, whether that's just verbally or you're using PowerPoint or you have a short little video, and then 15 minutes for Q&A. So the Q&A, there'll be no surprises in there. They will literally be asking you about either what was in your written application or what you presented that day. And they'll just want to probe further about, okay, so tell me how you got senior stakeholders on board. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And so it's very much them delving into what you've presented. And so no surprises, but they'll be going deep. This is followed by discussion with the panel. So like I said, you'll have 2 to 3 judges in your room, 2 at a minimum, and they will all take turns in asking questions. So generally they might take about 5 minutes each, or maybe the head judge will take a little bit longer, depending on the expertise within the group. So that's usually the format there. Timings will be strictly adhered to, and it will not be possible to run over time. So as much as the judges are really lovely, if you are coming to the end, they will give you a 1 minute warning. And then when you've reached that time, they will be quite clinical about telling you it's time, because they want to make sure that they're being fair and consistent to everybody. So it's important to get there early for your call. If your time is 9 o'clock, you'll be in the room, and 9:30 you'll be leaving. So it's important to practice your timings. Like I said, if you are going to do a trial presentation with colleagues, you know, map out that timing and get that boxed off as well. So you can find further guidance on the categories on our website. And again, as I said, the links will be shared with you, but I'm sure you're familiar with them all now at this stage. You can also watch the CIPD Ireland HR Awards launch video to hear what some of the lead judges have said about the winners. So that just will kind of tell the story of what they were looking for and what they were impressed by, and yeah, what they want to hear more of. You can also look at our winners online. So on the website, we have the 2024 winners, but we go back actually quite a good few years. So you can go in, you can see those winners. A lot of them have their videos up there. So you'll see their story and what they've done and how they went about that. So that's really, really useful and quick. We'll be sending you on a guidance document as well with just everything you need to know, and anybody who couldn't join this call. We have it recorded so you can share that with colleagues, but you can also have this presentation and you can have the guidance document as well. So I think that's it for me, but at the end, happy to take more questions.
So,
Great.
morning,
So I'll pass
everybody.
over to Lindy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lindy.
I'm not quite sure if you can see me or not, but firstly I wanted to say, is congratulations to everybody who's gotten to this stage so far, because we recognize that it's a lot of work that goes into it. So congratulations for getting here. The bits that I'm going to cover really are the next steps. So we are going to be sending you a guidance document, as Meg said, and we'll also be giving you a date that you're going to be making your presentation to the judges on. So it'll either be Tuesday, the 21st of January or Wednesday, the 22nd. And we'll be asking you for, we'll be sending you the date, the time slot, the link that you'll be using to give the presentation and the guidance doc. As Meg said, it is a tight ship on the day because there's a lot of people coming through, and you'll be able to bring a max of 3 people. I'm probably going to repeat some of what Mary and Meg have already said, but one key thing I would say is that make sure the people who are presenting have been key in putting the project together. So when the judges are asking questions, you've got somebody in the room who can genuinely answer because they've been part of the process. I think that's something to bear in mind. In the guidance document, there'll be lots of information about, joining on Zoom, and some of you may have issues with using stuff like Zoom. Reach out to me or Meg or any of the team, and we'll make sure that if you need to have a quick test before the day, we can try and do that for you. Whatever support we can give you, we want this to be a positive experience for you. So we are going to be asking you for some information prior to judging day. So as Meg said, get prepping early so that you've got this stuff and you're not going to be panicking when you come back after the Christmas holidays. So if you are going to be using a presentation, can we have a copy of that? A photo of the team who've been involved in the project, and also your company logo. You may submit a 2-minute video, but it's not, you don't have to, it is optional. And one of the other things I would say is, if you are submitting a video, it doesn't have to be all bells and whistles. You can use an iPhone, and as well, you don't actually have to have a PowerPoint presentation or a video, because in the past we have had submissions on people presenting with nothing, just themselves. Their story wasn't impact enough to get them through. So just bear that in mind. I mean, yes, it is lovely to have the video and all that to sort of, but only add it if it's going to help. Don't do it just because. I've also made some other notes here that might be useful. I'm just going to run through them. Like I say, Meg and Mary probably covered some of them, but if you keep hearing key information, that's something that you really need to make a note of. So Basically, you've done a lot of the hard work. So now it's time to expand on your submission and to tell the judges your story and the impact that it's had. So impact, I've heard a lot this morning. Remember to tell it as if you're saying it to somebody who doesn't know anything about your project or you. Because you living it, you sometimes forget that others don't know what your internal team's terms and acronyms are. So bear that in mind. If you're going to use them, make sure you explain them. Go to the website, see what qualities previous winners have had and what makes a winning entry. There's so many hints and tips on the videos and entries that you can benefit from. I think that's it. The timings, yes, Meg said that. Make sure you practice those timings and make sure you know who's going to be clicking to the next slide. Practice all that stuff so that you're not sort of fumbling on the day and you're maximizing the use of time. Like I say, reach out if there's any support that you need. We're here to help, and the best of luck.
Great. Thanks a million for that, Lindy, and thanks, Meg. And just to say, so we're suggesting that you actually go and have a look at the winners' videos, but the videos don't win the entry. The videos are 2 minutes that are part of what they shared with the judges and to emphasize some particular point or to bring life to the entry. So if you're using a video, use it to help you and to help your win. And I know we talked about having a max of 3 people in the room, but this is a way you can bring other voices into the room. So if your CEO isn't there, or as Meg said, a person who benefited from the program. So that's where your video comes in. Not about quality, more about content, but use it to help you. For example, bring other voices into the room. But we know we get videos that aren't great quality afterwards for showcasing. And so the organizations would tell us, oh, that was just people speaking. We don't think it's terribly interesting. But we just put them up to give people a little bit more insight behind the actual story that was told. Yeah, so they're not necessarily your standard to think about. I think, yeah, what Lindy was saying there about being prepared and preparing who's going to say what. But don't be reading it out. Do still tell it as a story. The judges can tell us, they said, oh, they had that prepped and somebody read it out, and it takes the spirit out of it. So do get comfortable with it. So we recognize as a profession, we do need to be in forums where we are making presentations, whether it be online or in person. So this is one of those times. It's worth putting in the preparation around what you're doing, particularly when there's 3 of you, because you do have to manage your steps first. So it's no point in planning for 3 people to say something and the first person goes over it. The second 2 people have a minute or 2 each. That won't help you sell yourselves. So a little bit of discipline around how you work and who says what, and pre-planning around it. You can expect to meet 2 or 3 judges. So we haven't yet put up the list of 2025 judges. We'll be doing that shortly. But the list of the 2024 judges are already up there. So that'll give you a flavour of who you're likely to meet across the table. We don't tell people in advance necessarily who the judges who the judges are, but the judges do introduce themselves on the day, and you can follow up with them on LinkedIn or anything like that if you want. They will introduce themselves on the day, but you can take it that they are senior HR leaders across the country, and some even outside the country. We bring 1 or 2 of our CIPD experts in as well to help us on this, and who would judge other awards too and be familiar with really high standards out there. So yeah, you can expect that. But at the same time, they're really full of heart. They come back to us and they say, oh, really? And they're struggling between somebody who's a winner and somebody who's second. And I sometimes say to them, I'm hearing this being a struggle between your head and your heart. Facts and the rationale about this one. Well, there was something lovely about this one. And yeah, they're tough decisions. They actually really do find them tough decisions, because what our finalists present is such good content. And also our judges want to hear the stories and take away the practice and implement it. So you're already going to be having an impact by just being part of this day, because the people listening to you will be taking the hints and tips, taking the learnings that you've had, and be going away to put them into practice. And I suppose that's so much what we're about in terms of being able to identify the good practice, recognise it, and then showcase it. And you're key to that. And we come back to our winners all the time to actually then make presentations, and often to our other finalists as well, because we find some really good stuff happening there. So don't undersell yourselves, but do be prepared. Okay, so I know we find that the Mansion House, where we hold our fabulous ceremony with Catherine Thomas, gets full very quickly. So we thought that we would give our finalists the chance to exclusively book it until the 16th of December, and then we will open it out to other people, to our entrants, to other people who want to join us on the day. And there's lots of those, so that means you'll be guaranteed what the seats you're looking for. And we know a lot of finalists bring a table and bring the team, so it's a great day out. If you haven't been there before, you can look forward to it. And I was amused with Linda Allen saying on the announcement last week, oh, she was booking a table for her team anyway, they were coming along. So that's great. I mean, that's the sort of reputation we're getting. This is the place to be on the 28th of February, along with your colleagues and your profession, and there to celebrate and enjoy what we do in general. Yes, we only have a small number of winners on the day, but really it's about celebrating what we do and networking and getting to know who's who in the room. In terms of colleagues you can bring to the ceremony, no, we don't have a limit on that in terms of the amount of tickets you buy. I think we might start looking if somebody wanted to book more than 2 tables, because we could then run out of space. So we just watch that if it goes above that, but a table holds 10. In terms of at the judging process, the limit is 3. So we ask you to restrict it to 3. Just logistically, that's fine, because there could be 2 or 3 people, 2 to 3 judges plus yourselves, and that's enough to be in a room, and it's also enough to give you the breadth to have an impact. And as my colleague said, have the right people in the room, because the judges could pick some particular aspect and want to know more. So make sure you have somebody who can answer the question, even if somebody happens to be missing on the day. We do go out with the days that we do tell you which day you'll be assigned to, rather than let you choose, because between our finalists and our judges, and we have to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. So we go to our judges and say, okay, here's the finalists in these categories. Have you a conflict of interest? Because sometimes we find they've worked in the organisation, or they know the team really well, or they've done a piece of work with you or at some point in your career. So that forces us to put certain judges onto certain days, onto certain categories, and then we assign that. But we try and tell you as early as we can. Okay, so yes, we're really looking forward to a brilliant award ceremony on the day. And where do you book? It's on Eventbrite, and you'll find the links then on our awards website. Meg or Linda, you might just put the link into that. And again, that's the day we'll we'll showcase our sponsors. Okay, I think we'll go over to any questions in case anyone wants to come online. You have been using the chat, so I hope that most of those have been dealt with. But if you'd like to raise your hand and take yourself off mute, I think you control that. So just raise your hand and take yourself off mute if you'd like to ask. Us some questions.
Mary, I think there was one that we may not have answered in the chat. For the video, is that played during the 15-minute presentation or just reviewed before? So if you mean the 2-minute video that you can have in your presentation, that's part of your presentation time. So your 15-minute time, if you're putting a video in there, that's in there. That's where they'll watch it. So yeah, just to confirm that. Sorry, I think that's Clodagh there now. Clodagh was asking that question. Did you want to?
Just to clarify, if we're submitting a video beforehand, that's the same video that will be played, that 2-minute video at the start of the presentation, or are they different? They can be the same?
It's the same.
It's just the one video, Clodagh.
Yeah, just the one. Perfect.
What we say is ideally you'd embed it in your presentation, so it will play automatically for you. We ask for the copies for our own backup. So if something does happen on the day, you were to be there and you were to be the presenter and you couldn't get in and you could only come in on your phone, we'll have a backup of the presentation that one of the team, you'll be able to reach out and say, sorry, I'm having trouble with access. One of the team will be able to reach out, find that presentation and be able to support you on that. So we're there to support those minor tech details. So don't panic over them. I mean, I would say, you know, between the last 2 years, it might happen once. You know what I mean? It's very seldom that it actually happens. But we're there. That's why we want the access. So we have your presentation to be able to say, okay, Clodagh, don't worry, here you go. And it takes the pressure off you and the team.
Brilliant. Thank you.
All down to Lindy's great administration.
So just another question on the video. Is it just like
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Just come a bit closer to the microphone if you wouldn't mind.
So just on the video, the content for the 2 minutes, is that just like a promotional type video, like to very briefly explain what the project was?
It should support, yeah, it should support your entry.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really up to you what you put into that 2 minutes.
Yeah, it should support your entry and enhance your story if it would help.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's some graphics, you know, that might come in and out to showcase it. If you can go and see the sample of things people have done. But again, your focus is on what will help the judges understand you, not what we put on our website. Yeah. So what will help the judges with your story? And often it's to bring in other voices into the room because you have 3 people, you know, telling the story, but what's been the experience and some example of the experience can be helpful to the judges.
Mary, there was another question from Dorian. For categories where it's individual people as opposed to organisations, should it be the individual doing the presentation or the people who nominated them? It's generally like both, you know, the nominator and the nominee will be there and maybe one other person. And it'd be nice to hear from both of them. Yeah.
Yeah. The judges tell us that very clearly. They don't say who should do which piece, but they very clearly say they like to hear from both, whoever's nominated them. And often there are only 2 people in those rooms, but that's their choice. The other question was about the ceremony. It is a lunchtime ceremony. And we have done that on purpose because we feel it's more inclusive and it's easier bring a team and you're out of the office on a Friday afternoon and take some of the pressure off evening time. We do sometimes go on in the evening, so yes, do come prepared. But we start off with lunch and an afternoon ceremony. So yeah, so that's what has really worked, and we get a lot of positive feedback on it. People might say, "Oh, really?" But actually, when they get there and they do it, and they come out and it's still only 6 o'clock in the day. It actually has worked very well for us. Someone has their hand up.
Michael Ganley, Mary.
Michael.
Morning. Can you hear me before I ask my question?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed, Michael. How are you?
I'm great. Great presentation. I think really helpful. I just had one question about the video also. So the video is for the purpose of the entry and the presentation. Would that be for judges' eyes only? I suppose I'm asking, or will that video potentially at a later date be on the CIPD website? Because it would be useful to know that from the outset when you're maybe having discussions with people who might be in the video.
Okay, so we go back to every winner to check we're okay to show their video before we show their video. Okay, perfect. So that's what we do a day or two, the following day or two after the awards have been announced. So on the day they're announced, we do put the names up on our website because people are really interested to know. People who aren't in the room want to know, which is great. But we go back to each company and say, have we your permission to showcase your video? So perfect, you have the right then to say yes or no to that. Or when you send it in, you can call it out if you have a concern over it. But no, we're not presumptuous around that, Michael.
But Mary, on the day of the ceremony, the winner's video, we have shown that in the past.
Oh, we have shown it on the, sorry, we have shown it at the event, but we have not put it on our website without permission. Sorry.
Okay.
So we do, it is up there. So, but it's up there and gone if you think of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, but it doesn't sit on our website. So yeah, sorry, we do actually showcase it. Thanks, Lindy. And that's part of us trying to help the audience learn what happens. Because, as I said last week, we have people who come and sat there and listen to what they've done and seen some of it and think, oh, we could try some of that. There's some great ideas. So it's just to share the learning. So yeah, but just to be conscious of that. Okay, anyone else like to ask us any questions?
Mary, could I just ask a question? I missed this somewhat. I'm just wondering, what's the date that the presentations have to be into you by again? Sorry.
The 10th.
The 10th of January. Thanks a million. Thank you.
Yeah, the 10th of January, please. So that we can, you'll be glad to know we actually do a validation on them, just to make sure that they're playing correctly so that nobody will get caught out. And just once or twice we've come back to people just to check that. So great, okay, and best of luck with it, Maria. Okay, anything else? So as we know, we have our dates, the 21st and the 22nd of February. We are conscious that sometimes in the past people came back of January.
Yes.
Of January, okay, sorry, of January, thanks. People came back after Christmas and thought, oh, we get going on this, but actually it does need a bit of thinking beforehand, before Christmas, so you can get your heads around what you need to do and then have a work plan, because you suddenly turn around that people are on taking extended holidays in January and there's nobody around. So we run into that. So hence we've pushed it back, our awards back a week or so in January. And then having done that, we get everything ready, and then we have the announcement of the winners on the 28th of February, and again a lunchtime event starting off about 12 o'clock, so early in the day, so to maximise networking time and build the atmosphere then for the afternoon. And look, we wish you well. I would say to you, as Meg said, prep and trial your presentation. One of the things we found is people have gone in and shared it with their leadership team, and the leadership team and said, oh my God, we didn't know you did that. So do use between now and February 28th to maximise your exposure internally and externally as finalists, because you're in the spotlight now, and take advantage of it and do use it to raise your profile. At the end of the day, I mean, I always come back to our mission for our awards, which is championing better work and working lives, and having that concept knitted through what you're doing and the language frame. And Meg mentioned our profession map, and even just the principles we operate, without even getting into the detail, the behaviours and that, you know, we operate off the principles that it's principle led. So the principles around people and good work, it's evidence-based in terms of we know why we're doing it with the evidence, and outcome-driven. We are trying to have an impact and we are measuring our impact. So there's some useful principles just to think about from the general CIPD perspective and to help frame it. And that's what we ask the judges just to keep an eye out for. And we're not saying we're seeing a lot of them, we'd love to see more of it, but just to keep that in your frame. Okay, so before I wrap up, any more questions? I think we've captured everything in the chat.
I just have a final comment, really. When you're preparing your presentation, is go make a start now. So, because getting started is the hardest part, and make sure you provide the evidence, put energy into it, make it exciting, and wow the judges. And the very best of luck.
Oh, thank you, Lindy.
Well said, Lindy.
Absolutely. From all of us, we wish you all the best of luck. We are here to support you. You know how responsive Lindy is when issues or questions come up. Well done to you all. Take advantage of being a finalist. We will see you on the 21st and the 22nd of January. And of course, if you haven't completed our HR practices survey, it's still in the field. We'd love to get your perspective of it. And we might even see you in person at our employment law seminar on the 6th of February. So if you can't wait to see us in person until the 28th, do come and join us for the 6th of February. A bit of a different topic, but I still think it'll help for your 2025 compliance agenda. Best of luck, everybody. Thanks so much for your support, because we know entering our awards and becoming a finalist does take some of your time, but enjoy it and get a bit of kudos from it. All our best wishes. Thanks. And I should say, have a happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Have a great time, everybody, and well done.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy
Thanks very much.
Christmas.
Bye.
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 I know.
How do I stop recording? It's on this one.